I am Reed, I am 27, just an average dude. I've made tons of money mistakes in my 20s, and now I want to share everything I've learned to help you take control of your finances and your life. Alright, so let me start with something real. A few years ago, I was sitting in my apartment eating instant ramen for the third night in a row and scrolling through Instagram and watching all these people my age post pictures of their new cars and their vacations and their fancy dinners, and I just felt this pit in my stomach. Not jealousy, exactly more like confusion. Like, what are they doing that I am not doing? Because I was working full time, I was showing up, I was trying, but somehow I was still broke, still in debt, still feeling like I was running in place while everyone else was sprinting ahead. And for a long time, I thought the problem was that I just wasn't smart enough. I thought these other people must have figured something out that I couldn't figure out. They must have read the right books or known the right people or had some kind of natural talent that I just didn't have. And let me tell you, that feeling sucks. It makes you feel small. It makes you want to give up before you even start. So I gave up for like a whole year. I just coasted. I paid the minimums on my credit cards. I went out with friends even when I couldn't afford it. I told myself I was young and that this was just what being in your 20s looked like. Everyone struggles, right? Everyone is broke. It is normal. But here's the thing I realized later. It is normal, but it does not have to be permanent. And the difference between people who stay stuck and people who figure it out is not IQ. It is not luck. It is not some secret hack that nobody tells you about. It is something way simpler and way harder at the same time. It is the ability to look at your life honestly and say, okay, this is not working. What do I need to change? That sounds easy, but most people never do it. Most people just keep doing the same thing over and over and wonder why nothing changes. I remember this one night specifically. I was 22 and I had just maxed out another credit card buying stuff I did not need. Clothes, takeout, a new phone, useless stuff, and I was lying in bed feeling this heavy anxiety in my chest and I could not sleep. I just kept thinking about how much I owed and how I had no plan to pay it off. I remember looking at my bank account and seeing like $47 and knowing my rent was due in a week. That is a horrible feeling. That is the kind of feeling that wakes you up in the middle of the night with your heart pounding. And I remember thinking there has to be a better way. There has to be something I am missing. So I started reading, not like school reading. I started looking up how normal people actually build wealth. Not the get rich quick stuff, not the crypto bros promising 10,000% returns. I wanted to know how someone with no money, no connections, and no special skills could just slowly build something stable over time. And what I found changed everything for me. It was not complicated, it was not sexy, it was boring stuff like budgeting and saving and not eating out every single day. But the more I learned, the more I realized that most people, including me, had been taught completely wrong about money and success and even intelligence itself. We think intelligence is about how fast you can solve a math problem or how many SAT questions you can get right. But that is not real intelligence. That is just one tiny slice of it. Real intelligence is about getting what you want out of life. It is about understanding how to navigate reality and make decisions that actually move you forward. You can have a genius level IQ and still be broke and miserable and lonely. I have met people like that. They are smart on paper, but they cannot figure out how to make their life work. And on the flip side, I have met people who are not what you would call book smart, but they have built incredible lives because they understand how to set goals and learn from mistakes and keep going when things get hard. That is the kind of intelligence that matters. And the good news is you can develop it. It is not something you are born with. It is a skill you build over time through practice and failure and honest reflection. So if you feel like you are not smart enough to figure out your finances or your career or your life, let me stop you right there. That is a lie. Your brain is telling you because it is scared. You are smart enough. You just have not been taught the right things yet. Let me give you a real example from my own life. When I was trying to pay off my debt, I did not have some big breakthrough moment. I did not win the lottery or get a huge raise. What I did was I sat down and wrote out every single thing I was spending money on, and I was honest with myself about what was necessary and what was just me being lazy or trying to impress people. And it hurt. It hurt to see how much money I was wasting on stuff I did not even care about. But that pain was the signal. It was my brain telling me something was off. And instead of ignoring it, I used it as information. I adjusted my behavior. I stopped buying lunch every day. I stopped going to bars just because my friends wanted to. I started cooking at home and finding free things to do on weekends. And slowly over months, not days, my debt went down, my savings went up, and I started to feel like I was actually in control of my life for the first time. That is the cybernetic loop. You set a goal, you take action, you notice where you are off course, you correct, and you keep doing that until you get where you want to go. It is not about being perfect. It is about being willing to adjust. Most people never adjust. They set a goal and then they hit one roadblock and they quit, or they set a goal that was never really theirs to begin with and they wonder why they feel empty when they achieve it. I think a lot about the goals that society hands us: go to school, get a good job, buy a house, get married, retire, and none of those things are bad. But if you are just checking boxes without asking yourself what you actually want, you end up living someone else's life. I did that for years. I went to college because I was told to. I took a job I hated because it paid. Okay. I told myself I would figure out the rest later, but later never came. I just kept drifting. The shift happened when I started asking myself different questions. Not what should I do, but what do I want? Not what is the safe choice, but what is the choice that scares me a little? Not what will impress other people, but what will make me feel alive. Those questions are uncomfortable because they force you to take responsibility. They force you to admit that you have been playing small. And that is hard. It is way easier to blame your parents or the economy or your boss, and trust me, I did plenty of blaming. But blaming never paid a single bill. Blaming never made me feel better at the end of the day. The only thing that helped was taking action even when I was scared. So here's what I actually did. I cut my expenses to the bone. I moved into a smaller apartment. I sold my car and started taking the bus. I picked up a side gig on weekends delivering food. I put every extra dollar toward my debt, and I read or listened to something about money almost every single day. Not because I loved it, but because I needed to reprogram my brain. I needed to stop thinking like a broke person and start thinking like someone who was building something, and over time it worked. It took years. Not months, but I paid off everything. I built an emergency fund. I started investing small amounts consistently. I quit the job I hated and started working for myself. And the craziest part is I do not consider myself special. I am not smarter than anyone else. I am not more disciplined. I just got tired enough of being stuck that I finally decided to change. And once I made that decision, everything else followed. Not easily, not quickly, but steadily. I want to talk about the stages of development because I think this is where a lot of people get confused. You ever meet someone who is really smart but also really miserable? They can argue about anything. They can win every debate, but their life is a mess. That is because they are stuck in what psychologists call the expert stage. They are good at zooming in on details, but they cannot zoom out and see the big picture. They know how to do things, but they do not know if they are doing the right things. And that is a trap a lot of high IQ people fall into. On the other end, you have people who are not experts in any one thing, but they understand patterns. They see how things connect. They can take knowledge from one area and apply it to another. Those are the people who tend to build successful lives. They are not trying to be the smartest person in the room. They are trying to be the most adaptable. And adaptability is way more valuable than raw intelligence. When I was in my early 20s, I was firmly in the conformist stage. I did what everyone else did. I followed the path that was laid out for me. I never questioned anything. And I was unhappy, but I did not know why. It took hitting rock bottom financially and emotionally for me to start waking up. I had to feel the pain of my choices before I was willing to change them. And that pain was the best teacher I ever had. Now I try to stay in a growth mindset. I am not perfect. I still make mistakes. I still have weeks where I fall off track. But I have learned to catch myself sooner. I have learned to ask, what is this mistake teaching me, instead of just beating myself up? That is the difference between someone who grows and someone who stays stuck. If you are watching this and you feel lost or behind or like everyone else has figured it out, and you have not, I want you to know that is completely normal. Almost everyone feels that way. The difference is some people let that feeling paralyze them and some people use it as fuel. You get to choose which one you are. Start small, pick one area of your life that feels off, and make one tiny change. Maybe it is tracking your spending for a week. Maybe it is cooking dinner at home 3 nights instead of ordering out. Maybe it is reading 10 pages of a book about personal finance. Whatever it is, just start. Do not wait until you have the perfect plan. Do not wait until you feel ready. You will never feel ready. You just have to start and figure it out as you go. That is the real secret. Not a secret at all, actually. It is just doing the work even when it is boring, even when it is hard, even when nobody is clapping for you. That is how you build something real. That is how you get your life together. I am still working on it every single day. I do not have it all figured out, but I am way better off than I was a few years ago. And that is all I need. Progress, not perfection. Peace.